AITA for cutting off my parents when they demanded my sister move into my new home? My name is Allison and I am 30 years old. I work as an investment analyst and I am pretty good at what I do. Some might say I am too careful with money, but that is just how I am. Growing up as the younger of two sisters taught me very early on that if I wanted something, I would have to work to get it on my own. No one was going to hand it to me on a silver platter. My sister Stephanie is 3 years older than me. She has always been the golden child of the family, the pretty one, the sociable one, the one who in my parents' eyes can do no wrong. Do not get me wrong, I love my sister. But my parents' favoritism was pretty obvious from day one. You could tell in everything. It was not just about money, it was about the expectations they had for each of us. They always expected Stephanie to succeed almost effortlessly, while I was just there as filler, as if my things mattered less. Stephanie married Jason right after finishing college. He works in construction management and they started having kids very quickly. Now they have 3. Grace, the oldest, Owen, who is 5 years old, and little Liam, who is 2. They are sweet kids, but Stephanie always complains about how hard it is to manage them all in the rented apartment where they live. She says they do not fit anymore. As for me, I have been lucky in my own way. My best friend Kayla's parents own several properties, and they have been renting me a 1-bedroom apartment for 5 years at half the usual price. They trust me and I have never given them a reason not to. I have been saving almost religiously since I started working, living below my means, cooking at home instead of eating out, taking public transportation whenever possible. All those little things that add up over time. My coworkers sometimes make fun of how frugal I am, but I had a very clear plan in my head. I always dreamed of having my own place. Specifically a small quiet house in the countryside, nothing huge. After the pandemic, working remotely became more common at my company, and now I only have to go to the office for important meetings. So a quiet place, far from the city noise, sounded perfect. Last week I finally opened my savings account and took a good look at the numbers. After years of planning and careful saving, I had enough for a down payment on a modest house in the country. Nothing fancy but something of my own. I spent hours browsing real estate websites, looking at potential properties. Nothing over the top, just a cozy place I could call home without depending on anyone. I was in the middle of looking at listings when my cell phone rang. It was my mom calling with her usual perfect timing. "Allison, my love, do not forget we are expecting you for dinner on Saturday," she said with that voice that carries a tone of command disguised as a reminder. "Stephanie and Jason are coming with the kids and please try to arrive on time for once." I arrived at my parents' house in the suburban neighborhood at exactly 5:05 that Saturday. The garage and driveway were already full of cars. Stephanie's family minivan took up almost all the space, forcing me to park my car on the street. Even before reaching the door, I could already hear the chaos inside. Surely Grace and Owen were chasing each other all over the house while little Liam joined the fray with his 2-year-old screams. "Allison is here," Stephanie announced when I walked in, barely looking at me, while trying to convince Liam to eat his puree. The kids barely noticed my presence, too busy in their own world to say hi. Mom was in her element, keeping an eye on everyone and everything, serving plates, drying hands, picking up glasses without stopping for a second. Dad was settled in his favorite armchair with the newspaper in his hand as always. "Everything gets more expensive every day," he grunted from behind the pages. "Have you seen the price of gas? It is a robbery." "Do not even get me started," Jason chimed in, serving himself another portion of Mom's lasagna. "And my boss, what an unbearable guy," Jason continued with his mouth full. "Yesterday he just showed up out of nowhere. Changed the entire project schedule without even asking the team. Who does that?" Stephanie nodded with a long-suffering face while fighting with Liam's bib that would not fasten. "At least you get to leave the house," she said. "Try being in a tiny apartment all day with these 3. I took advantage of the chaos to look at my cell phone under the table. There was a little house I was in love with, 2 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen, and a beautiful garden. The price was within my range. I was so engrossed in the photos that I did not realize Mom was watching me until she spoke out loud. "Allison, what is so interesting on that phone? You have barely touched your food." All eyes turned to me and I felt my cheeks get hot. I could have made something up about work, but for some reason I decided to tell the truth. "Actually," I said, I am looking at houses. I am thinking about buying one soon. The silence that followed was crushing. Even the kids seemed to notice that something had changed in the atmosphere. Stephanie's fork stopped halfway to her mouth and Jason's complaints about his boss were cut short. Buying a house, Mom repeated as if she had not heard right. You. Well, yes, I said, already regretting my honesty. I am just looking at options for now. Nothing final. What kind of house? Stephanie asked with a strangely sharp voice. I have not completely decided, I answered, trying to deflect the conversation. Mom, this lasagna is incredible. Did you change something in the recipe? But I felt it. The wheels turning in their heads, the unspoken thoughts floating in the air. My parents exchanged one of those meaningful looks they have been using their whole lives, and Stephanie kept glancing sideways at Jason. The usual dinner chaos slowly returned, but something had shifted, as if a piece had been left out of place. The rest of the night felt weird, as if everyone was playing their usual roles, but with their minds on something else, on another plan. A week flew by and I had almost forgotten about the strange tension of that family dinner. Work kept me busy. I spent my nights researching mortgage rates and property taxes. I was in the middle of a video meeting when my cell phone started vibrating with Mom's name on the screen. I let the call go to voicemail, but she insisted 3 times in a row, one after another. Finally, on my lunch break, I called her back with the feeling that something serious had happened because of so much insistence. Allison, finally. Mom's voice was overflowing with enthusiasm. I found the perfect house for you. You will not believe how perfect it is. Patricia, remember Patricia from church? She told me about a listing in her neighborhood. It is absolutely ideal. I pushed my food aside. I brought my fingers to my temples, already feeling the headache coming on. Mom, I have not even asked for help house hunting, I said. But she was already on a roll. Impossible to interrupt her. It has 4 bedrooms. No, wait, 5. The master bedroom is huge, and there are some adorable little rooms for kids with built-in closets. And the backyard, you have no idea. It already has a playground installed. Can you believe it? And the location is perfect. Walking distance to the local elementary school and the public library. Mom, I finally managed to get a word in. I appreciate you thinking of me, but that is not what I am looking for at all. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What do you mean no? She asked. I took a breath, trying to keep my voice soft but firm. I am looking for something completely different. I want a small house in the countryside, something cozy just for me. I do not need multiple kids' rooms or a playground. Do not talk nonsense, she replied immediately with a sharp tone. You cannot just think about yourself. You have to plan for the future. This house is perfect, it is even on sale. Patricia says the owners want to sell fast. I know what works for me, I said firmly. I want a quiet place where I can work from home. That is what I am looking for. Mom made a disapproving sound in her throat, as if she had swallowed something bitter. Well, do not come crying later when you realize I was right. The call dropped. I stared at my cell phone with a mix of frustration and guilt. But I did not have time to dwell on it because a message from Stephanie arrived right away. Hey sister, look at this, it said. What followed was a flood of links to house listings, one after another. All of them were family-sized homes in good neighborhoods, 4 or 6 bedrooms, multiple bathrooms, huge backyards, all close to schools and parks. I quickly typed, thanks, but I am actually looking for something smaller in the countryside. Stephanie's reply was immediate. But these are incredible opportunities. Look, this one even has a separate guest apartment, she insisted. More links kept coming. During my afternoon meetings, my cell phone would not stop vibrating with messages from Stephanie. Each one was another house listing, each one bigger and designed for a large family than the last. I stopped checking her messages after listing number 20. I was simply exhausted. Instead, I called Amanda Thompson, a real estate agent I had found through positive online reviews. She had a reputation for truly listening to her clients, and that was exactly what I needed. I want something small and cozy, I explained to her. A house in the countryside, but not too far from the city. Good internet is a must because I work from home most days. And if it has a little garden to grow some herbs and vegetables, even better. I told her my budget range and her eyes lit up as if something clicked in her head. I think I have exactly what you are looking for, she said. It went on the market just yesterday. Do you want to go see it this weekend? The house was about a 40-minute drive from the city, tucked away on a quiet country road. As soon as Amanda's car pulled into the gravel driveway, I felt something settle inside me. The house was perfect. A 2-bedroom cottage with a white facade and dark green shutters. It had a wraparound porch with 2 rocking chairs, and some tall trees provided shade in the front. Inside, light poured through the large windows into a living room that integrated with the kitchen. The kitchen was small but updated, with wooden countertops and new appliances. A wood-burning fireplace dominated one of the living room walls. Upstairs there were 2 modestly sized bedrooms and a full bathroom with an antique clawfoot tub, but it was the sunroom in the back that completely won me over. It had windows on 3 sides looking out onto a well-kept garden, with raised beds and a small greenhouse. The owner wants to sell fast, Amanda commented while we stood in that light-filled room. She is willing to give a 5% discount if it closes quickly. I did not hesitate. I want it, I said. The following week was a whirlwind of paperwork, mortgage applications, and negotiations. I put down a larger down payment than necessary so the monthly payments would be comfortable and would not drown me. Every night I fell asleep looking at pictures of my future house, imagining where I would put the furniture, planning what I would plant in the garden. When everything was signed and official, I felt so happy I could barely believe it, as if I could finally rest. I could not wait to share the news with my family, despite their previous attempts to influence my decision. The following Saturday I drove to my parents' house for dinner, practically buzzing with excitement. Stephanie and Jason were already there with the kids as usual. We sat down for dinner and Mom served her classic roast, the one she makes for special occasions. The usual conversation started circling the table, Jason's latest work dramas, Stephanie's struggles with the kids' school schedules, Dad's comments on the economy. Then Mom turned to me with a smile that made my stomach shrink. "Oh, Allison, I am so glad you came. I was just talking to Susan. The next-door neighbor is going to sell her house. Do you remember Susan's house? She is willing to give you a good price. You really should consider it, actually." I interrupted her, unable to hold back anymore. I already bought a house. The sound of silverware against plates stopped abruptly. Even Grace stopped doing cartwheels in the background of the dining room. The silence was absolute. I took a breath and started describing my new house. My voice was full of enthusiasm, despite the obvious tension around the table. It is a beautiful little house about a 40-minute drive from the city with 2 bedrooms. It has an incredible sunroom and even a small greenhouse in the backyard. The owner left some beautiful garden beds, full of good soil, ready for planting. Have you gone crazy? Dad's hand came down hard on the table and the plates jumped. I had never seen him so furious. Liam started crying from the shock of the noise. I stammered, completely thrown off by his reaction. What is wrong? What were you thinking? Mom's face had turned an alarming shade of red. How could you think of buying a house without consulting us first? After everything we showed you, all those perfect family houses we found for you, she continued. I felt as if I had suddenly entered an absurd parallel reality where nothing made sense. Why would I have to consult you to buy my own house with my own money? I asked. Because we already had it all planned out. Mom practically yelled. Now, Susan's house would have been perfect right here in the neighborhood with plenty of room for everyone. Room for everyone, I repeated slowly, feeling my confusion mix with something heavier. I am the only one who will be living there. The silence that followed was crushing once again. Mom and Dad looked at each other while Stephanie sat there with a strangely calm expression, and Jason suddenly seemed very interested in his plate. Actually, Allison, Mom said in a tone that made my blood run cold. The plan was for Stephanie, Jason, and the kids to live there with you. I looked at her waiting for the joke, the punchline, something, but it did not come. Excuse me, was all I managed to say. Stephanie nodded as if it were the most natural thing in the world. We are so cramped in that apartment, Allison. It is really hard on the kids, she said. Your house would have given us all the space we need, she added with a smile, as if she were talking about borrowing a jacket. And since we would not have to pay rent or utilities, we could finally start saving some money. I looked around the table from face to face, waiting for someone to let out a laugh, to say it was a joke, for something to break in that theater. But all I saw were completely serious expressions. Dad's stern disapproval, Mom's indignation, Stephanie's comfortable expectation, Jason's evasive discomfort. You all. I struggled to form the words. You all assumed I was going to buy a house so Stephanie's family could live there? Well, of course. Mom threw her hands up. That is what family is for, to help each other. Help each other? I repeated in disbelief. This is not helping. This is expecting me to provide housing for 5 people without even asking me. Are you being selfish? Stephanie said, her calm facade starting to crack. Do you know how hard it is for us in that tiny apartment? Grace and Owen have to share a room and Liam's crib is in our bedroom. It is not fair to the kids. I felt like I was suffocating as if the air had grown thick. The room seemed to spin a little as the weight of their expectations fell on me. They had sat there for weeks planning my future, deciding how I should spend my money, without once considering what I wanted, or thinking that maybe they should ask me. You need to cancel that ridiculous purchase immediately, Mom demanded with a sharp voice of authority. Call your agent first thing Monday morning. Susan's house is still available and it is perfect right here in the neighborhood, close to all the good schools and kindergartens. No, I said, standing up from the table, my chair scraping the floor. The word came out louder than I expected, fueled by decades of pent-up frustration. The dining room erupted into shouting. Mom stood up too, waving her arms. Dad's voice boomed over everyone else's. The kids started crying, feeling the tension in the room, but Stephanie kept complaining as if she had not heard me. But we are going to be so cramped, she sobbed. Do you know how hard it will be to take the kids to school from so far away? Grace has ballet on Tuesdays, Owen has soccer on Thursdays. I turned to my sister, feeling something inside me finally snap completely. You are not going to be cramped anywhere because you are not going to live in my house, I said. Not you, not anyone ever. Is that clear to you? The room went silent. Everyone looked at me as if I had grown another head. The offended astonishment on their faces was almost laughable. Allison, Mom gasped, bringing her hand to her chest. How can you be so cruel to your own sister? I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, their voices rising again behind me, but I did not want to hear another word. I got in my car and drove back to my apartment in a daze, with everyone's shouts echoing in my head. Alone that night, sitting in my living room, the memories started rushing back like a movie I had tried to forget. Christmas 1999. Stephanie got the original Barbie doll she had asked for, one of the expensive ones, and I got the cheap knockoff version from the store. They look exactly the same, Mom had said, but they were not the same. Our 16th birthdays. When Stephanie turned 16, she was gifted a brand new Honda Civic with a huge red bow on top, straight out of a magazine. I got Dad's old car with over 100,000 miles and a habit of breaking down at the worst times. High school graduation. Stephanie's graduation party was a huge event in the backyard with catering, a hired DJ, and custom decorations. Mine was a quiet family dinner because there were too many expenses that month. For college, Stephanie went to her dream private university with my parents paying for tuition, supplies, room and board, and even a generous allowance. Meanwhile, I spent my senior year of high school filling out scholarship forms, staying up late to maintain a perfect GPA, knowing it was my only chance to afford a decent college. And now we were here. After years of favoring Stephanie, of giving her everything while I worked through the scraps, they simply assumed they could take over my house, the one big thing I had achieved entirely on my own. They had planned to hand my dream house over to Stephanie, just like they had handed her everything else. I was in the middle of packing up my kitchen when the loud knocking on my apartment door started. The coffee mug I was wrapping in newspaper slipped from my hands. Luckily, it fell onto a pile of paper and did not break. Allison, open this door right now. My father's voice boomed through the wood. We know you are in there. I froze with the bubble wrap in my hand. Another loud knock followed. Go away, I yelled. I am not talking about this anymore. Do not even think about talking to us like that. Dad's voice made the door shake in its frame. We raised you better than that. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my cell phone. If you do not leave right now, I am going to call the police. I mean it. I opened the phone's keypad and pressed a number loudly, making sure they heard the beep. I am dialing right now, I said. Ungrateful. Dad's insult was cut off by a sharp gasp from Mom. We are leaving. Her voice turned ice cold. But this is not over, Allison. You are making a terrible mistake. I heard their footsteps fading down the hallway, and then I slumped against the wall with my heart racing. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was very wrong. The first message from Stephanie arrived an hour later. It was a picture of Grace and Owen squeezed into the bunk bed they shared. Look how little space they have, the text read. Grace cannot even have a desk to do her homework. I did not reply. Another picture arrived a little while later. Liam's crib wedged into the corner of Stephanie and Jason's bedroom. He wakes up every time we go to bed. This is not fair to him. When I continued to ignore her, Stephanie's messages turned venomous. They started arriving at all hours. 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 6 in the morning. You were always Dad's least favorite. Mom falls asleep crying because of you. I hope you are happy. All alone in that huge house while your niece and nephews suffer. I blocked her number, then her Facebook, then her Instagram, but she kept finding ways to reach me. She created new accounts, used Jason's cell phone, and even made fake emails just to write to me. Then the calls from other people started. First it was Aunt Gloria. Allison, my sweetie, I heard what is going on with your sister. Surely you can find it in your heart to help the family, she said with a sweet voice. Then came Uncle Edward. Girl, you need to think about what really matters. Family comes first, he declared. Next was my mom's best friend, Teresa. Your mother is devastated. How can you do this to your own family? She scolded me. Even my old high school teacher, Mrs. Henderson, who my mother still saw at church, got involved. Allison, I always thought you were such a kind student. I am very disappointed to hear what is happening with your sister, she said. Everyone repeated the same message, that I was selfish, heartless, cruel, that I should give up my house, my dreams, my independence to solve my sister's housing problems. No one seemed to question why Stephanie's situation was suddenly my responsibility. After 2 weeks of constant harassment, I had had enough. I went to the phone company and changed my number. I gave it to my job and a handful of trusted friends who had not taken sides in this disaster. Moving day was wonderfully peaceful. I hired a moving company I had never used before so my family could not track the address through familiar services. The movers were efficient and professional, and by sunset, I was already standing in my new living room, surrounded by boxes and possibilities. That first night in my little house, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, listening to the crickets and watching the stars appear. No traffic noise, no sirens, no family drama, just silence and fresh air. I felt something inside me finally loosen up, a tension I had not known I was carrying for years. Sure, from time to time I still saw their posts on social media, Stephanie's passive-aggressive statuses about family betrayal and selfish sisters, Mom's loaded quotes about ungrateful children and family duty. I also read the comments from relatives and family friends who took their side without knowing the whole story. But the funny thing is, none of it affected me anymore. Their words no longer affected me in my new house. I turned the second bedroom into a small office, setting up the monitors in front of the window, so I could watch the birds come to the feeder I installed. The garden beds the previous owner had left started filling up with herbs and vegetables. My first attempt at a garden was surprisingly successful. The greenhouse became my weekend project. Little by little, I filled it with plants until the place was full of green everywhere. My productivity at work even improved. Without the constant family interruptions, my boss noticed and gave me more responsibility along with a raise. I started taking online courses on investment strategy. I expanded my expertise without anyone telling me I was wasting my time, or that I should focus on finding a husband. Of course, there were times when I missed the idea of a family, not the reality of mine, but the dream of what a real family could be if it were healthy. Those moments usually passed quickly when I remembered the peace I had gained in exchange. I made new friends in the area, other professionals who also worked from home, a local gardening group that met once a month, neighbors who respected boundaries and did not feel entitled to invade my space or my time. None of them knew my family history and I preferred it that way. They knew me as I am now, not as the person my family tried to turn me into. The most ironic thing is that I am probably being truer to my parents' original dreams for their daughters than Stephanie herself. They raised us to be independent and successful women. They just never expected that I would be the one to actually achieve it, let alone that I would be independent from them as well. Sometimes the best family you can have is yourself, at least until you decide to add someone else to your life on your own terms, in your own time and in your own way. And that right now is more than enough for me. Yeah. Comment. Hey everyone. This really got me thinking about how important it is to set healthy boundaries with the people we love. I believe we all deserve to protect our peace and the dreams we've worked so hard for. Sometimes, choosing yourself isn't selfish at all. It's simply necessary for your well-being. I've learned that real kindness includes being kind and gentle with yourself first. Taking full responsibility for your own life can feel uncomfortable at first, but it also brings incredible freedom. Healing truly begins when we stop carrying the heavy weight of everyone else's expectations. I hope this encourages you to value your own worth and gently stand up for what you truly need. It's completely okay to create distance from situations that keep draining your energy. Building a calm and authentic life for yourself is one of the most loving things you can do. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.